I was going to go over to a meeting over in, not today, but are we all set? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Monday, March the 6th, 2017 at 2 p.m. in Council Chambers. So first off will be the adoption of some minutes. So the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of February the 20th, 2017, the regular open minutes of February the 20th, and the public hearing minutes of February the 20th. So could I have a, thank you, motion? That would be Councillor King, Councillor Campbell. All in favor? Thank you. Business arising from prior minutes? Nothing in there. Introduction of late items? Nothing there, Mr. Rumenko? No? Okay. So we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Youngberg. All in favor? And no delegations and no water matters, other than I'm looking out the window and I can't see the other side now, so it's either snowing or raining. So that's the water matters for today. Next is correspondence, and that is a letter from the Osoyoos Lawn Bowling Club. You don't want me to, are you going to speak to it? I'm not reading the whole letter, am I?
I can speak to it.
Sure, thank you.
Mayor and Council, there's on the correspondence, there's a letter from the Osoyoos Lawn Bowling Club, and it's quite a lengthy letter, but I think it very appropriately summarizes the kind of the excellent job that the Lawn Bowling Club has done in the last 2 or 3 years to try and engage the community in an expanded program. You know, they've taken on a great challenge to try and get more people to use that facility, and have sponsored many activities, and including family nights. So they've got high school and high school kids engaged in the sport as well, and so certainly a very accolades need to go out to society and their endeavors there. In this letter, the bottom line is that they are making a grant application for a gaming grant totaling $31,900, and they're requesting a letter of support from council to include in their grant package.
Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make a motion that we support him with a letter.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, seconded. And there is a copy of one that we did 2 years ago, so it would be similar to that, I would think. Okay, all in favor of that motion? Thank you very much. Next is the business license amendment bylaw. Ms. Wong.
All right, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to request that Council adopts the attached Business License Amendment Bylaw number 1045.33/2017 after it gave the bylaw first 3 readings on February 20th, 2017. The bylaw proposes to include applicable fees for the use of municipal parking stalls under the stationary downtown street vendor category. While Planning and Development Services will be preparing a new and updated business license bylaw this year, and we are targeting for spring or summer, staff recommends that housekeeping amendments be made to Schedule A license fees in the interim prior to the release of this year's street food vendor expressions of interest this month. To provide an overview, when the business license bylaw was amended in 2009 to include provisions for stationary and mobile street vending, stationary vendors on municipal land were only permitted to operate within a municipal park delineated on the Schedule D map of the business license bylaw. In 2014, Council then approved the street food vendor selection and approval policy in order to implement a systematic approach in attracting and selecting food vendors based on an annual quota system. Under this policy, the scope of municipal land vending sites expanded to also permit stationary vendors to operate in public parking spaces within the C1 downtown commercial zone off of Main Street. However, Schedule A of the business license bylaw had not been updated to capture the use of these downtown parking spaces as municipal vending sites. Therefore, this amendment bylaw proposes to include the monthly license to use fee and additional fee for each parking stall consumed for the stationary downtown street vendor category. And this would be similar to the stationary park vendor category. In terms of implications for the community, continue to provide prospective street food vendors the option to operate as a stationary downtown street vendor while ensuring that vending site fees are also applicable to this category. Organizationally, Planning and Development Services will be preparing a new updated version of the business license bylaw this year. In terms of budget, the town will gain more return for the use of public property. Significant dates. If council adopts the bylaw today, staff proposes to advertise the street food vending expressions of interest for 2 consecutive weeks starting on March the 8th with a submission closing date on March the 22nd. Planning and Development Services will then evaluate the proposals received and forward recommendations to council at the beginning of April. In terms of sustainability, the street food vending program aims to attract and select quality food vendors to serve both residents and visitors. In terms of options for council, option number 1 is that council adopts Business License Amendment Bylaw number 1045.33 2017. Option number 2 is that council requests further revisions to the bylaw before proceeding further. And option number 3 is that council does not adopt the bylaw and the bylaw will be abandoned. And staff's recommendation is option number 1.
Thank you very much. Councillor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question, is there a maximum of how many extra stalls I could rent?
For
Well,
one
I just said I
particular
might pay
vendor.
$150 per stall. I could rent 6 or 10 more stalls that I chose?
Well,
Yeah, it's
the
written
fee
like
would
that.
be based on a per stall basis, but I guess we would be evaluating a proposal, and likely if an applicant is proposing that
Many?
that many parking stalls, we would have to take a closer look since there are a limited number of parking spaces in within the downtown area.
Right, but technically it says I could rent as many as I want. So I'm just wondering if it needs rewording or
Or you
you're
can
happy with
request
it.
as many as you want.
Yeah, request.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that
Well,
that might be
it doesn't say
something.
request.
So that might be something that we can look at as part of the updating the business license bylaw later.
I wanted to make a motion and then speak to it, if that's okay. I move that council adopts Business License Amendment Bylaw number 1045.33 2017.
Number 1. And seconding it, yes?
When we look at the expressions of interest and gauging public input through social media and things like that, with whether it's zoning bylaws, whether it's RFPs for water, women's sports, things like that, I'd like to see us get a little more progressive in our approach. So I'm not suggesting, I think we continue to put out the advertisements in the Osoyoos Times, but I think it might make sense to look at some of the more digital online components to convey that message to, whether it be a Osoyoos Loop or Osoyoos Today, or to engage a little more digitally and get more engagement from the public.
Mr. Emenko, are you going to respond to that?
Yes, just in terms of Osoyoos Today, there is a button, hot button on Osoyoos Today that has all the latest news from the town.
Okay.
And that if people have an interest in what's happening in the town, that social media
Oh, I didn't
venue
know.
is available. We've just added that in the last probably month or so as another method of connecting with individuals.
Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Do these RFPs go out on BC bid, or is that an option at all?
This is not a RFP or a tender, so in terms of based on the policy that we have, it's advertising mainly through the newspaper, as well as posting through the town's website and going out by e-news. So these are the main advertising methods that we have right now for the expressions of interest.
So this is just to adopt the business bylaw, but does this mean that people can now apply to be a vendor this summer? Is that what that includes in this or not?
That would be separate.
Okay.
We are planning to release the expressions of interest package this week, but for the purposes of this bylaw, this is just to amend the schedule within the business license bylaw.
Good.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that last year it was left a little bit late, and so
Yes.
we needed time
So
to
we
make
are-
sure.
yes.
That's why we're sort of hurrying up with this.
So we are trying to push this, earlier this year.
All right. Yes.
Can I just go back to Councillor Rhodes' question? Was that question intended to kind of scope out kind of the breadth of where we seek out these vendors?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So as you can hear from the response, we basically looked at a local marketing. We can go out and we could probably put this out, probably into Penticton and Kelowna as potential sites for the seeking out vendors if council feels that that would kind of broaden potentially the quality of the applicant.
I was actually thinking even more into the Kootenays, where there seems to be a lot of that business around in the Nelson area and things like that with creative food vendors. And
Well, we can take a look at our marketing program, and we'll take a look at making it, kind of a wider scope to try and bring more interest into the community.
Okay. So for the time being, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the business license amendment bylaw. All in favor? Thank you very much. Next is the official community plan. That would be Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. On January 5th to 17th, the RDS Regional Board approved an amended version of the South Okanagan Regional Strategy, RDS, which in turn requires Osoyoos to amend the regional contact statement in our OCP, showing how it supports the RDS. On February 6th to 17th, Council gave first and second readings to the attached copy of our OC Amendment Bylaw number 1230.19 to 17. A public hearing on the proposed amendment was held on February 20th to 17th, but no member of the public attended. The original South Okanagan RDS was adopted by the RDS Board on April 1st to 10. According to the Local Government Act, the purpose of an RDS is to, quote, to promote human settlement as socially, economically, and environmentally friendly, and that makes best and efficient use of public facilities and services, land, and other resources. All regional district bylaws and services must be consistent with an RDS after adoption, whereas member municipalities, like ourselves, have to meet the less demanding standard of submitting a regional context statement for regional board approval, which is consistent with the rest of their OCP, that demonstrates relationships between the OCP and the RDS, and, if applicable, lays out how their OCP will be made consistent with the RDS over time. The Local Government Act requires that a RGS be reviewed for possible amendment at least once every 5 years. The RDS Board decided that only minor refinements were necessary at this time, as opposed to a major review which would have required an intensive public consultation process. A consultant was retained to work with a project steering committee comprising senior planners for the RDS and member municipalities, and that included myself, and they agreed on numerous refinements for forwarding to the RDS Board, including updated population projections, organizational restructuring of the RDS for improved readability and ease of locating topics, and considerable editing of its policies to improve their clarity and consistency and to remove redundancies. Consequent refinements needed to our regional context statement include reordering OCP references to match the new RGS structure and referencing new policies added to our OCP since original RGS adoption. And I won't go over the impacts because I've read them twice already and will be reading them again. But just noting significant dates. Following third reading of our regional context statement bylaw, it has to be submitted to the RDS board for their acceptance before council finally adopts. Options. Option 1, council gives third and final readings to the OCP amendment bylaw 123.19 to 17, or council requires revisions, and we recommend option number 1.
Thank you very much. Council, would you like to, Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mayor McCormick. I'll move option number 1 as it's worded.
Thank you. Councillor Youngberg, was that you seconding it?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other concerns? Yeah, we did have a public hearing and there was not any interest in it. Anybody had any concerns? So, and we feel quite confident having Mr. Cunningham on the planning committee. So we think that that was the right way to go. So all in favor of this option? Thank you very much. Carried. Next is the Mr. Cunningham again, and this would be the application for comprehensive development at 4217 Lakeshore Drive.
Thank you. Okay. This staff report follows the public hearing on February 20th, 2017 regarding Mr. Chris Maradian's development application for 4217 Lakeshore Drive. Mr. Maradian is the agent for Richard Coughlin, president of RLSC Strategic Capital Management Corp. The attached location map shows the 14.2-acre subject property on the east side of Lakeshore Drive, opposite Walnut Beach Resort, along with existing surrounding uses, and that's attachment 1. The intent of the following attached OCP and zoning bylaw amendments, which went to a public hearing, are to enable comprehensive development of the property for mixed housing, along with a small amount of commercial space. And there's 3 bylaw amendments there. I won't read them out this time because I'll be reading them out again later in the report. But I just want to point out that they're respectively attached as attachment 2, 3, and 4 to this document.
Pardon?
May I say something?
I'm sorry. There is not an opportunity at this type of a meeting for anybody.
I complained I wasn't given enough notice to come to the last meeting.
I'm sorry, but we did advertise it for 2 weeks in the Osoyoos Times, and so we cannot change things for that reason. And I'm sorry. You can certainly listen to what is going on today, and I'm not sure whether anything that you have written down can be accepted or not. Can that be, or is it too late to accept anything?
Everything that's supposed to be considered by council is on the table right now.
Okay.
And then we just follow due process relative to the readings and next steps.
On Friday, and then the next Friday I get it at 11 o'clock. An hour isn't sufficient notice.
And I'm sorry, I would think that if you did have any concerns after the meeting today, that our Mr. Cunningham would be the right person to, yes, in his office at the planning department, and he could then fill you in on what would be acceptable and not. So I'm sorry, at this meeting you cannot speak. Okay, Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, we'd be pleased to talk with you afterwards, okay? As part of the due diligence, the applicants provide an environmental site assessment, geotechnical assessment, servicing design report, and traffic impact assessment, which are all accessible on the town website. Overview. Approximately 35 members of the public attended the public hearing, along with Mr. Maradian and his architect Tyler Smith, who both made presentations. Attached at the end of this report are A. Minutes of the public hearing February 20th, 2017, B. Letter received from Mr. Maradian in response to public hearing February 22, 2017. Following are staff comments on issues raised at the public hearing. 2.1 Traffic. Increased traffic was a major issue raised at the public hearing. In response, staff recommends a comprehensive traffic management approach be taken to the Lakeshore Drive corridor as a whole. The applicant's traffic impact assessment projects that the first 4 phases of their development project would generate 75 vehicle trips by 2022 and 238 trips at full build-out in 2026. However, their traffic engineers also project that background traffic, that's a quote, from infilling and developing other properties along Lakeshore could add another 20 vehicle trips by 2022 and 196 trips by 2026. These trip numbers are the highest flows that could occur on Saturdays during the peak summer months, and presume that the pace of development and achievement of full build-out will match her assumptions, whereas there is always some uncertainty as to the what and when unfolds in such projections. If for some reason the current development scheme did not proceed, another traffic generating development will occur at 4217 Lakeshore Drive, whilst on the other hand, some of the other potential background traffic generators along the Lakeshore corridor may not materialize. However, in response to public concerns, staff does recommend revisiting the town's 210 Lakeshore Drive pedestrian safety review to identify worthwhile options for mitigating traffic impacts, especially improved crosswalk safety. 2.2, emergency access. Contrary to assertions made at the public hearing, there are alternative emergency access out of Lakeshore Drive, including up 36th Street and out to Highway number 3 from 67th Avenue, north of the Fernandez fruit stand. 2.3, parking. Staff will exercise due diligence ensuring that all development phases on the subject property meet the on-site parking requirements under our zoning bylaw. Mr. Maradian, missing word, in his February 22nd letter offers to discuss temporary land uses to the town of Osoyoos on lower portions of their lands until such time as they develop. Staff recommends that any town discussion in this regard should only proceed on the basis of private parties with parking overflows paying their way and committing to finding another long-term solution to meeting their needs. 2.4, view planes. The developer's architect has provided cross-sections of the proposed project showing limited intrusions into view planes of surrounding properties. That's attachment 5, and confirmed this design safeguard at the public hearing. Staff will also verify at each phase of development that the applicant's detailed designs respects their neighbor's view. 2.5, bank stability. Staff confirms that following proper practice, the applicant's already submitted general geotechnical assessment will need to be augmented with detailed geotechnical assessments at each phase. 2.6, environment. As indicated at the public hearing, staff recommends that a riparian wetland assessment be undertaken for the existing ponds on the lower part of the subject property intended for stormwater management and which are part of the applicant's promised 1.74 acre park dedication. Our official community plan delineates a number of environmentally sensitive development permit areas across the town based on the presence of species at risk and sensitive ecosystems, and though they do not extend to 4217 Lakeshore Drive, the consultants who did perform the background analysis did identify some riparian values in the area, and I've cited the consultant's report at the bottom of the page. Consequently, staff recommended that the applicant fund a riparian wetland assessment of funds of the ponds to survey their baseline ecological resources and prepare protocols for their protection to be considered in their design and operation for stormwater management. Stormwater management design will accord with best practice low income impact design LID standards. Turning to 2.7, marina. The applicant has agreed to remove reference to any marina from CD9-map 1. As Mr. Maradian explained at the public hearing, only very preliminary discussions have taken place with the town on a potential marina to be accessed through municipal lands north of Walnut Beach Resort, and it is premature to include this feature as part of their proposal. If, when, and where a marina comes up for discussion again, it would be addressed as a separate project to the town's foreshore and lake zoning bylaw, which has its own development standards and public hearing requirements. 2.8, tourism. Because tourist rental residents are a major component of the proposed project, staff retained our town lawyers to help create a level playing field with our hotel-motel industry by preparing a rental pool covenant for signing between the applicant and the town. The covenant will require all tourist rentals to be part of a strata rental scheme with obligations for central guest registration, a minimum stay of 1 week, collection of hotel taxes, and strong penalties for non-compliance. That's attachment 6. Finally, density. The applicant has agreed to reduce the height of the most northerly 4-story building. Their newly proposed 2-story building would have retail on the ground level together with 15 to 20 apartment units above, or instead live, work, artists, students in a row housing format or some combination between those two, for a net reduction of between 40 to 45 tourist rental dwellings. Thus, the total number of dwelling units will be reduced from 234 to 274 units. From 234 to 270 units to 209 to 234 units, and the share of tourist accommodations dwellings reduced from between 146 units to 106 to 126 units. Also, the maximum density included under the proposed park dedication will go down from 22 dwellings to 19 dwellings per developable acre. The impacts, I have read those before, and if I may, I'll pass over them this time. I just want to note in significant dates, a rental pool covenant between the applicant and the town has to be signed before final bylaw adoption. Going on to the options. Option 1, Council gives individual third readings separately to each of the following. First, official community plan amendment bylaw number 123.16 to change the land use designation from tourist commercial TC to comprehensive development CD. Also, zoning amendment bylaw 108.5.96 to create CD9 comprehensive development zone. And also in the package, the third one, zoning amendment bylaw number 185.101 to 16 to add zoning definitions for a resort secondary dwelling and a resort two-family dwelling. Option 2, Council rescinds second reading to zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 185.96 to 16 and gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 185.96 to 16 as amended, including a reduced building program, exclusion of the marina, and requirements for detailed geotechnical assessments and applicant-funded riparian wetland assessment. And that amended bylaw is attachment number 7. And as part of that option, I'll also be asking that Council set a public hearing date for March 20th to 17. We've since then refined our operations, and we'd be able to do that on March 20th if Council agreed. It would be at 4:30 to 6 o'clock in the Sonora Center rooms 4 to 5. We thought that it would be best to go there because of the overcrowding which we had at the last public hearing, so that March 20th.
So not March 27th, March 20th?
March 20th, we can make our March, save a whole week by going to March 20th.
Not the 27th as you... Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We since I wrote this, we looked at our timetables and discovered that we could shave a week off it.
Okay.
Option 3, request the applicant to further reduce building densities, or option 4, abandon the current proposed bylaw amendments. And staff recommends option number 2.
Thank you very much, and thank you for looking carefully at all of the statements that were provided at the public hearing, and putting them in a readable form for us to have a look at. Thank you. So, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Director Cunningham, I would like to open a little discussion on the traffic situation, which was the number one thing in your report.
Mm-hmm.
And so the traffic report was missing a couple of components that I would like to see added in there. they've speculated on increased volumes that would occur, both, initially and throughout the full development phase. But, one of the things that needs to be weighed is the impact that it's going to have on that road, the community, how it exits onto Highway 3 and so on and so forth. And just to have the numbers that they're going to increase doesn't really tell you very much if you don't know what the current traffic volume. So just for clarity, if you have 50,000 cars going through there and you add 193 movements through there, well, that's not very much. But if you only have 300 a day going through there and you're adding 200, that's a major and serious impact to not only the road but the intersection and safety and all of the other things that go through there. And I don't know whether I've missed that or not, but we should have those numbers so that you can see how it's going to increase. With regard to safety on the road, which was another fairly significant component, we've tried to do several things speed-wise and some traffic calming devices that we were going to put on there. I'm not sure, other than the speed thing that we did a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if any of the traffic calming things have been put in there, and I don't think we've actually heard back any of the results from it. But there are very effective ways, but I think at the end of the day, the intersection where it exits onto Highway 3 is going to be the number one component on how the traffic will flow through that area. And I know we've been very frustrated. We had an opportunity a few years ago to get a traffic light. It was chosen to be put on Cottonwood with good sound reasons. But boy, I don't see that as being much of an option at that intersection not because of our motivation, but because of the provincial component that enters into that. So, boy, I'd sure like to see some, different traffic flows or different options that we have before this goes much further, because it's a very, very important component of this development in that area.
Okay, we're responding to your points. The first one, a very valid one, and I'll attempt to find out whether, in fact, current traffic flows are there. It seems strange that we can project additional traffic, and you would assume that the existing ones would be in place, but that would be determinant on whether, in fact, warrants were issued recently by provincial highways, but we will follow up on that. The second one, with respect to traffic safety along Lakeshore, I'm particularly concerned myself about safety at pedestrian crossings. That's always a very dangerous kind of point, and there are a number of things which were identified in the report that could be done additionally to what we have done already, including requiring that there's no parking of cars next to the pedestrian crossings, that there could be signs put up which tell you to reduce your speed and take warning, and also ones that where it flashes your actual speed itself. So those are just some of the options which are available from the report, and I think after careful review we'd determine which ones were the most cost effective that we can take back to council. With respect to the intersection Highway 3, the Ministry of Highways are already involved in this. They received the report, they acknowledged that, and they're also prepared at a very early stage to meet with the town and the consultants and go through the required improvements that would be required to that intersection, albeit that the traffic consultant projected that the improvements wouldn't be necessary to the year 2026, but it always takes a very long time when you're dealing with the provincial government, especially with highways. So we'd want to start that immediately, make sure that we did not fall behind, and it may be necessary in 226, but there's got to be agreements in place. There's got to be designs. There's got to be monies allocated and the construction undertaken, so that we would allow the sufficient lead time to make sure that we don't fall behind in that particular regard.
Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Under environment, you've stated that staff recommends that the applicant fund a riparian wetland assessment of the ponds. In other areas here that you've identified, it states that the applicants have agreed to certain things. Is this a recommendation, or is this something that the applicant has agreed to do?
That's a recommendation, and the applicant has read this particular report and didn't raise any objection when he read back to me. So I assume that he's perfectly willing to do this, and I think it's reasonable, and it's included as a recommendation to council. And
then the findings of that assessment, once done, where would we go from there?
Well, the next stage would be the actual design of the ponds to improve their operations as a storm retention pond, but at the same time, it should be designed on a multi-objective basis so that not only is it suitable for stormwater detention, but if there's any necessary protocols that should be in place for protecting any rare and endangered species there, they should be dealt with at the same time.
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in there too about the environment. It did say that they did an environmental site assessment, but that was just based on looking to see if there were contaminants in the. And
that's correct.
To me, a riparian assessment is absolutely key. For I don't think anybody could do any kind of a development near any kind of water without a very comprehensive riparian assessment. Am I correct?
That is correct, and we should have recommended that from the outset. We always had it in mind that it should be very carefully designed on a multi-objective basis, but I think we need the riparian wetland assessment in place before the actual design starts.
And my other option, or the other thing I'd just like to mention when we're going through here, is that the developer has agreed to lower the northernmost four-story building to 2. Personally, I would like to see the other 4-story building lowered to 2 as well, but I know that that's not part of this. But to me, that would make sense. Who I think Councillor Youngberg was next, then Councillor King.
Thanks, Mayor McCorduff. Just a couple of questions that still linger in my mind, and one of them is the rental covenant that goes with the comprehensive zone. How do we, Town of Osoyoos, or planning determine how you're going to regulate that? We have a couple of covenants registered on different properties in the town at this point that are not enforceable. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are regarding the covenant that you would like to see registered.
Okay, well, this is a much stronger covenant than we've ever attempted to apply in the past to deal with tourist accommodations. It's modeled on something which apparently is used very successfully at Whistler, and it does have a very heavy fee component. There's a perpetual charge of $1,950, which is they call it abated against the property, legal terminology. And so as soon as they don't obey the rules and regulations which they will have signed up on, then that sum of money, that fine, will automatically cut in.
So it would be totally up to the strata to police it and cover the issues of the short-term rentals.
That's a good question. We want to get into more details on that, and one of the things that I'm going to be looking at when we need to do a bit more fine-tuning on the agreement, but we have the time to do that. And I want to see that there's suitable provisions for the town if they consider desirable to go in and check the books of the strata to see that in fact those provisions are being upheld. I think that's necessary. So I'm going to be talking to the lawyer about that.
So the indication is that the developer will only proceed based on resort rental accommodation. Would they consider taking the resort rental accommodation out of their proposal?
I can't answer for them, but I can say that
Was there any discussion about it?
Yeah, there were. There was an original application that they made where there was more units total than we have here, where there was a lot more choices and uncertainty as to what they would be putting into each phase, and included a lot more resort rentals, and planning staff advised that they didn't think that was advisable, and so they agreed at that time to radically reduce them. Whether they're prepared to go back in again and reduce them a second time, I can't talk for them.
So that zoning then would allow us to collect the 2 or 3% resort municipal funds on the rentals?
That would exactly be one of the intents, so they'd have to pay all the provincial taxes that would be were required, including 2% right now, and I understand it may be going up to 3%. Yes, it would.
Councillor King, did you have a
Thank you,
question?
Madam Mayor. I was just curious if this development went forward and it showed a need for a light on Highway 3 or some reconfiguration, who pays that expense?
That'll be part of the discussions, but right now we have a DCC project for improvement of that intersection. However, it includes improved geometry and sidewalks and that kind of thing, but it does not include traffic signalization. So there will be some additional costs that are required, and we have it in a report that the developer should expect to pay some of those improvement costs, and the actual cost-sharing formula would be worked out with the Ministry of Transportation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just for clarity on the DCCs on the intersection, those DCCs would be charged to all future development that
That's
would
correct.
impact
Yeah.
Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, not just that one particular applicant. He will be paying his DCCs like everybody else, but those DCCs for that specific project are collectible from all eligible projects.
So before we go any further, can I just check with you that March, considering the things that have been suggested, March the 20th is still considered could be considered an option to have a second public hearing, even though there may be several things that need to be done beforehand?
Well, we will do our due diligence and come to that meeting with additional information as being requested. But we have an ad that's been drawn up in anticipation of hopefully that council would go for that option. We have a space reserved in the newspaper. I go back to the office and then I say it's a go, and the advert would go in for Wednesday, and then there would be an advert in the following Wednesday, and that meets our requirements under Local Government Act that for how soon and how late you have to advertise a public hearing.
Okay. So, council, what are your wishes about this? Councillor Rhodes?
Well, I think that based on the discussion and the ask for additional information, I'd feel comfortable with moving forward with option number 2, and I'll make that motion. One of the changes would be the date of the public hearing, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd
Okay,
second that.
you're seconding that?
One more question.
Yes, absolutely.
So after the March 20th hearing, if it's still an outcry from the surrounding people that the density is still too high, is there, by passing this second reading, are we committed to that density?
No, council
Third reading.
council can, just as they considered the input from the first public hearing, they can consider the input from the second public hearing, taking into consideration that I think that the developer has gone a reasonable way to try to satisfy some of the concerns, and also staff have by adding additional requirements to be placed into the bylaw.
Thank you.
Councillor Rhodes?
Not to sound like a stuck or broken record, but some of the information that was asked with regard to the traffic portion of it, we're certain that we're going to be able to provide some information by the 20th, just so that we can nail that date down, because it is part of the motion. And
I will start the training rolling as soon as I go back to the office.
yeah, I feel that it's such an important part of the overall
I
picture.
totally understand the importance of your question.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, anybody else? So the motion on the floor is to do option number 2, which you, Ms. Van Vienen, would you like to read it, please?
Moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor King that second reading given to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.96 2016 be rescinded, and that zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.96 2016 be read a second time as amended, and that a second public hearing be held on Monday, March the 20th, 2017.
You didn't include the parts in the middle about the reduced building program, marina, and geotechnical assessments. Is that going to be included? That's included in the motion?
Yes, it
Is
should
it
be
not?
included.
Yes, it needs to be all part of that motion. The only thing that would change would be the public meeting date to the 20th of March, not the 27th. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
While we're fine-tuning that, I would mention that this is another opportunity to make your ideas and opinions known to council, and that is on the 20th of March. Yeah, just so that you know.
Sonora Center, rooms 4 and 5, they're upstairs.
And it will be advertised in the paper this week and on the town website, all of that information. Okay? So we've got that the way it's written and in here. All in favor of option number 2? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Okay, next is the MRDT bylaw. That would be Mr. Rumenko.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. The Municipal and Regional District Tax, MRDT, was introduced in 1987 to provide funding for local tourism marketing programs and projects. The tax is intended to help grow BC revenues, visitation, and jobs, and amplify BC's tourism marketing efforts in an increasingly competitive marketplace. The MRDT is up to 3% tax applied to sales of short-term accommodation provided in participating areas of British Columbia on behalf of municipalities, regional districts, and eligible entities. To promote a coordinated and efficient use of funds, the following enhanced MRDT program principles have been adopted. 1. Effective tourism marketing programs and projects. 2. Effective local level stakeholder support and inter-community collaboration. 3. Marketing efforts that are coordinated and complementary to provincial marketing strategies and tactics. And 4. Fiscal prudence and accountability. The MRDT is jointly administered by the Minister of Finance, the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training and Destination, British Columbia. The provincial sales tax was amended in 2015 to increase the maximum rate on the purchase of accommodation that may be imposed in a designated accommodation area from 2% to 3% of the purchase price of the accommodation. Increasing the rate of a tax is optional. A designated recipient may request a change in the rate of the tax to 3% of the purchase price of the accommodation prior to renewal date by submitting a complete application containing all requirements. If approved, the tax will be renewed at the new rate for another 5-year period. It is intended that the designated recipients implementing a rate of 3% will sponsor and contribute to a provincial tourism events program. Under this program, 0.2 percentage points of the incremental 1% of the tax will contribute to a provincially led program to support tourism events that are expected to increase tourism to or within British Columbia. Designated recipients with a 3% tax will be subject to enhanced reporting requirements. Destination Osoyoos, DO, is formulating a strategy to seek stakeholder approval to increase the MRDT on Osoyoos accommodation from 2% to 3%. The current bylaw governing the implementation of MRDT only allows a maximum of 2%. DO must provide the provincial government with a bylaw that allows for a 3% rate. Attached, please find a new bylaw, 1327, that captures the changes that DO needs to proceed with an application to seek an increase in tax. DO will be seeking stakeholder approval of this increase. The bylaw is worded in such a manner that enables DO to proceed with a tax of 3% or 2%, depending if stakeholder approval grants the increase in MRDT. Currently, DO receives approximately $400,000 in MRDT funds to enable tourism marketing and program support services. The additional tax will generate approximately $100,000 of additional revenue. DO's new five-year strategic plan will provide information relating to how these additional revenues will be spent. In terms of implications, the community benefits from MRDT funds financing tourism marketing and other tourism programs. An increase in funding will allow for additional tourism investments. There's no organizational impacts. The budget, no town budget impacts. However, DO will receive upwards of $100,000 annually. Significant dates, request for decision at this meeting to enable the bylaw being part of an application package. 3 options are presented for council. The first being council rescinds additional hotel tax bylaw number 1288 and gives first, second, and third reading to the Town of Osoyoos Municipal Rural District Tax Bylaw number 1327-2017. 2, council denies the DO request to increase the MRDT charges to accommodation and directs administration to bring back a new bylaw that reflects this direction. And 3, council requires additional information and directs that this information be brought to council's next regular meeting. In terms of a recommendation, the administration recommends option number 1. The current bylaw is worded to capture the change in MRDT legislation in such a manner that the current 2% rate can be maintained or the 3% implemented based on the direction of stakeholders.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Korda. First of all, I think we just need to remind everybody how lucky we are to be a resort municipality and be able to benefit from that program. Other resort municipalities have already implemented the 3%, and one of the resorts just outside of the town here had implemented a 3% destination marketing fee for the past year. So this certainly isn't groundbreaking. We wouldn't be the first to do this. So I'm fully in support of option 1, that council rescinds the additional hotel tax bylaw 1288 and gives first, second, and third reading to the Town of Osoyoos Municipal Rural District Tax Bylaw number 1327-2017.
Thank you. Councillor King, you're seconding that? Absolutely. Any other concerns? All in favor? Thank you very much. Transit Memorandum of Understanding. That would be Ms. Van Vienen.
Thank you. The Town of Osoyoos has held the operating agreement for the South Okanagan Transit System for several years. It was in the business plan to turn over the administration of the operating agreement to the RDOS as the system services Osoyoos, Oliver, and RDOS areas A, C, and D. In 2016, the RDOS passed a servicing bylaw to take on the administration of the South Okanagan Transit System operating agreement. This will come into effect April 1st, 2017, once the current operating agreement between BC Transit and the Town of Osoyoos expires. For the past 2 years, an advisory group comprised of RDOS, Summerland, Penticton, Princeton, Karamias, Oliver, and Osoyoos staff was formed to look at the regionalization of the different services and integrate them into one rider's guide with one fare schedule. One fare will remain the same for the time being as the South Okanagan Transit service to Kelowna, which will remain at $11. The Transit Future Plan does look at regionalizing this system, but until that process is completed, the South Okanagan Transit Service will continue to have Monday service between Osoyoos and Kelowna. The proposed new rates are shown in the following table. I won't read them all out. However, I do want to stress that these are just proposed. They are not implemented as yet, and they have to be passed through the RDOS board. In some cases, the rate will increase, where in others they will decrease, with a total projected loss of revenue of $1,960 or reduced by 10%. And these are just estimates given by BC Transit. They are not for sure. They're just estimated percentages. The ridership, however, is expected to increase by 87 or 3%. They are projected on BC Transit models and are speculative but not absolute. The loss of revenue is shared amongst the funding partners, and therefore, based on the previous calculated share, Osoyoos would only be paying $752 more towards transit. The good news for regular riders is that the monthly pass fees will be reduced dramatically. This is to encourage people to purchase monthly passes, reducing the amount of cash on board the bus, and to hopefully attract more riders throughout the system. This will also be beneficial administratively, as it will reduce staff time and cash fare counting. It is important to note that these fares will be the same throughout the region, so it will be easier for citizens to know how much the bus will cost in any area. Monthly passes will be sold out of the town offices in Osoyoos and Oliver and out of the RDOS office in Penticton. The other benefit to regionalization is the all-in-one Rider's Guide. The new Rider's Guide will include all of the transit services within the RDOS area. This will be very beneficial to riders who wish to connect to buses in other service areas. There will also be a 1-800 number established for inquiries, which will also make it easier for riders to navigate, to get further information, or to reserve a seat. This is done for paratransit customers as well as for passengers heading to medical appointments that need to be assured a seat, as well as for those passengers in Cleedon or Summerland where the bus only stops where requested in advance. Attached is a memorandum of understanding for the implementation of the changes. It is being requested that the town sign this agreement in order that the new regional Rider's Guide can be finalized. The service changes are being scheduled to be implemented in July. For implications for the community, standard transit rates and ability to connect to other services more easily. Organizationally, staff will likely need to attend further meetings to continue with the finalization of the regionalization scheme, as well as the transition to the South Okanagan Transit System to the RDOS. Under budget, additional $752 annually for transit to be prorated for 2017, and that is again estimated based on ridership. Significant dates: this will be brought to the RDOS board at the end of March, and therefore it is important that this MOU be considered at this meeting. Sustainability: the improvement of the transit system into a regional system that provides better service not only to the citizens of Osoyoos, but to all the riders of the South Okanagan Transit System. Options: that Council approve the Memorandum of Understanding for the implementation of the regionalization of the South Okanagan transit fees and the implementation of one regional Rider's Guide. 2, that Council does not approve the Memorandum of Understanding for the implementation of the regionalization of the South Okanagan transit fees and the implementation of one regional Rider's Guide. Or 3, that further information be obtained. And staff recommend option 1.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Ms. Van Vienen for being a big part of this group that's looked at this over the last while. I have to point out that to go from Osoyoos to Kelowna is $11, and if you went from Summerland to Kelowna, it's $11. So I think that's fair.
And these rates will only stay at $11 until the regionalization occurs, which is in the 25-year transit future plan. However, that date hasn't been set as to when our bus will connect to a bus in Penticton that will connect to Kelowna.
And also it connects to a bus over to Princeton too. So I think the fact that the Rider's Guide is much easier for people to look at and figure out their path. So it makes perfect sense. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Does it show that there's going to be more transportation on Fridays, or any transportation on Fridays?
For the South Okanagan Transit System, that will be implemented this September.
Oh, okay. So then, because we subsidize it usually in December, so we could save money in the bigger picture then, correct?
Yeah, this was a date that was set by BC Transit for the implementation of the extra Friday service.
Okay.
So yeah, they set that date for September.
Perfect, thank you.
So that helps kids going to
Save
classes
money.
up there
Yeah.
and medical appointments. So good.
Yeah,
So is there somebody like to make a,
I'm going to make the motion.
okay?
Yeah, that was only one question I had too, was the students that are riding from here to OBC. Motion is the council approve the Memorandum of Understanding for the implementation of the regionalization of the South Okanagan transit fees and the implementation of one regional Rider's Guide.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any other concerns? Thank you very much. All in favor? That's
Good work,
carried.
Jeanette.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
so important for our area.
So next is the Community Services Sports Grants. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Community Service Grants policy has an area dedicated to sports teams and individuals who qualify for provincial competition or higher. Individuals can access up to $200, and teams can qualify for up to $500. The total amount dedicated in this area is $2,000. 2 teams from the South Okanagan Minor Hockey Association are on the verge of being selected to travel to provincials. The Pee Wee representative team has qualified for the Tier 3 provincial championships in Dawson Creek, and the midget team has actually made their the provincial championships in Terrace. Both of these teams will be fundraising to help offset the overall costs for travel. We also had an application from an individual who was traveling to the BMX World Championships at Rock Hill, South Carolina. Brody McLean has qualified and will represent Canada at this event. SOMA is an association that includes Osoyoos and Oliver. The town of Oliver has already dedicated $500 per team. The Tier 3 provincial hockey tournaments are scheduled for March the 19th to the 23rd, and the World BMX Championships are scheduled for July 22nd to 29th, 2017. Community implications: assisting individuals and sports teams through the Community Services Grant Program shows pride and support for these teams and individuals who qualify. The budget, $200 per individual and $500 per team, as per the Community Service Grants policy. Significant dates: March 19th to the 23rd for hockey provincials, and July 22nd to 29th for the BMX World Championships. The options: number 1, for council to approve, $500 to the Pee Wee rep team, $500 to the midget rep team to travel to provincials, and $200 for Brody McLean to travel to the World BMX Championships. Option number 2, for council to approve a lesser amount of funding to each qualified applicant, and option number 3, for council not to approve funding at this time. And the recommendation is option number 1. There is $2,000 dedicated to individuals and sports teams who qualify for provincial championships or higher. No funds have been used to date. If council approves the aforementioned funding requests, there will be $800 remaining for other individuals or teams who may qualify later in the year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I'd like to move for council to approve $500 to the Pee Wee rep teams, $500 to the midget rep team to travel to provincials, and $250 for Brody McLean to travel to the World BMX Championships.
You're seconding that?
Yes, it's a different dollar amount than that was in option number 1.
Yes, so it's 200 to 250 for that. Okay. And that's been seconded. Anyone else like to speak to that? I just think it's pretty amazing that that we have these 2 teams. I think they went last year, and they also are going again this year. And it's a combined Oliver and Osoyoos team for both areas, for both. And well done to Brody McLean for making the team for Canada. I think it's amazing. So
I do have another request.
Yes.
Shortly after all this was done, we were asked for the use of our bus. And the reason I would bring it forward is because we have a policy that says it can't leave or stay overnight. And I would think it would be for the Pee Wee or the midget team. I'm not exactly sure. And they're not sure if they have or need it. But to make that happen, if we can put something in writing for that.
So what if they both want it? And so how do we do, flip a coin?
I think if it's available, they would have to decide themselves. But it may be already booked. But we'll find out here right away.
I mean, I would move that if the bus is available and there's a need, that we would grant that request.
Second that.
Does that come with a cost? And if so, how do we know?
Moving stopped.
We still have a motion on the floor that
Okay.
hasn't been voted on, so we need to vote on that and then start the
So
one.
we're going to go back to option number 1, and with an increase from 200 to 250. Okay, so let's vote on that first. All in favor? Thank you. Sorry, Miss Van Vienen. Now
I'll move that if the bus is available and there is a need from SOMA to use that bus and keep it overnight, that we would approve that request.
Are you seconding that? It wouldn't be overnight. It would probably be for a week, right?
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes, and then Councillor Youngberg.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Is it that simple to do it? just by resolution.
Yeah, we had this before the high school took it to Terrace. If there's extra insurance that we have to get because they're going a greater distance, they would have to, purchase insurance for that purpose anyway.
Okay.
There is a charge as per policy, and it is a daily charge, $25 or more per day. And then going out of province is charged again, so it's in the $50 mark, plus the cost of gas. I think the two provincial teams are expecting to pay for some type of transportation, but obviously they're looking for as much as they can get. So,
Does it have snow tires and or chains?
It's got great snow tires on it. I drove it 2 weeks ago.
2? Where'd you drive it?
Penticton.
Okay, that
He
is
was
quite the.
grocery shopping?
That's my only concern, is this is winter driving and we're headed way up north. So it's acceptable to drive it and okay.
And so who pays the maintenance, like the transmission blows out or
Yeah.
something, that's our cost?
yeah.
So, I mean, I think that the cost of fuel on a bus traveling that distance is significant.
It is.
I understand that the organization is prepared to pay for that kind of travel. Having said that, can we not waive the daily fee of renting a bus? I would add that to my motion.
Waive the
That's
daily
agreeable.
fee, but have them pay for the gas.
Yeah.
It's actually $50 a day to take it out of town, not 25.
That's right.
So does that make sense, Mr. Remenko? Is that, what do you
Well,
think?
I have some concerns over
Yeah, you
that,
wanna
but
use that
that certainly if they were going to use a commercial bus, the cost would be very, very significant relative to the endeavor, and I think making the bus available at a nominal fee is something that was decided by policy for very specific reasons, that it does cost money to run the bus and maintain the bus. Just a trip like that would be more than an oil change, and so there's associated cost with that.
Okay. We'll stick to the original motion.
So the original motion was to allow the use of the bus if it.
Overnight.
For the amount of time the
Overnight,
tournament's
yeah, I think it
on.
will be.
Well, that's what I mean.
I know,
but
yeah,
that's-
overnight, yeah. Is that what the motion says, Ms. Van Vienen?
Trying to figure, I've got to attend the provincials, which would mean overnight. Do you want me to specify overnight? Do you need that
Well,
specification?
I understand that it's policy that
Provincial
it doesn't
permit.
stay somewhere overnight, so I think it needs to be specified.
Could be multiple.
Yeah, it could be allowed to stay overnight as long as it's a tournament or something.
You can put the dates there, I guess. in
But that there is a
That's
cost
what
to
we
it, and they would have to pay that because
$50
that
a
makes sense
day,
for our cost.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think by not stating that, it just goes to the
Yeah,
normal.
yeah.
We do have a different rate for commercial use too, in our bylaw.
Okay.
So we didn't take business away, and that's the reason that was in there. So, and we
So
do have some.
You would look
commercial
after
use.
all of
Makes
that
sense
fee, yeah.
I struggle with that commercial use. I run it for a wine tour. Compete with who's out there.
That's who you're taking.
We'll just wait for Ms. Van Vienen to read it back.
Bring it back for consideration.
When you're ready, can you read it back to us? Thank you.
Just making sure it makes sense
Sure.
now. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, that council approve the use of the bus by South Okanagan Minor Hockey Association if the bus is available and if there is a need, and that the bus be approved to be kept overnight,
As per policy.
as per policy.
As per policy. Okay. And do you have a mover and seconder for that? Do you have a mover?
Yes, I have
Okay.
Councillor Campbell, Councillor
They may
King.
not need it.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? Thank you very much. Okay.
Just make sure you tell them it takes about a third amount of gas as a car.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for looking after that. And next is the Osoyoos Child Care Facility, and this is Mr. Davis as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the regular meeting of Council on February 6th, Council requested that administration contact the daycare facility in order to get more information regarding the funding request. Staff has reviewed the lease agreement and has attached attaching the document to this report. In summary, staff asked the daycare if they were seeking out additional funding from other sources, if a cost-benefit analysis was conducted in relation to the solar panel installation, if any type of structural report was available that shows the roof can support these solar panels, and to forward at least one more quote for the flooring as per the town's purchasing policy. The daycare indicated that they are seeking grant funding from the Community Foundation grant, as the solar panels would be accepted for potential grant funding. They have done some research in the terms of the solar panel application. They received 2 quotes with 2 different types of application. One company preferred micro inverter system over a string inverter system in terms of the safety, cost effectiveness, efficiency, and simplicity to install. They did not forward any type of structural analysis for the rooftop installation. The daycare has received 3 quotes from flooring companies for the flooring improvements upstairs and downstairs at the center. The resilient flooring needed for the infant toddler program could be funded 50% by the BC Recycle Tire program. They have only received 1 quote for this flooring upgrade. The community implications: enhanced funding to improve facilities and programs for daycare residents. Budget: solar panel request was for $19,217. Resilient flooring was $15,198, and the flooring improvements were at $27,820. Significant dates: they would like this ASAP. And sustainability: installation of solar panels assists with reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and reduces the carbon footprint. Option number 1, for council to fund the aforementioned projects subject to the information requested by administration, and that would include the structural analysis of the roof. Option number 2, for council to fund a portion of the project costs subject to the information requested by administration. Option number 3, for council to fund only one of the projects. And option number 4, for council not to fund these projects at this time. And staff is recommending option number 2 and option number 3. Both of these projects are valid and have a similar degree of importance. If other funding is available for either project, council could assist with both projects. Otherwise, council may fund just one.
Thank you very much. I guess one of the questions that I had right away was, we do have a copy of the lease, and it was done well with explanations, and it was done about 20 years ago. So that was I read through all of the parts, and the tenants in the tenants' covenants 4F, it says to pay all costs and expenses of any kind associated with the leased land, repair and maintenance costs. And so I think that was one of the concerns that we had originally when this first came up. What is the responsibility of the town to complete these repairs? And while I certainly agree that things can be, we can help people if needed, I'm a little bit concerned about this being an ongoing thing now that the building is about 20 years old, and that we could be asked for repairs on this on an ongoing basis, when according to the lease it's really not part of the town to do this. And I'm wondering if it would be better to say to them, apply to the grant and aid program for help on this. And it's just my thought, and I'm not sure what other people think. So, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McAuliffe. Well, similarly, I'm really conflicted about this, and really my confliction is not resulting from any of the feelings that I have about the daycare center and the importance in our community. I also have concerns about the lease and the commitments that each party has in that lease, because the town also has leases with other businesses and other entities in the town, and you don't want to send the wrong message to those people. The solar panel ask I have some serious concerns about that, and I understand the benefits, how it improves the environment, and I get all of that stuff. But the town of Osoyoos does have a little bit of experience with a solar array that we have up in the golf course area that provides electricity to one of our aeration pumps, I believe it is, in one of the ponds up there. I think generally it works pretty good. My concern is that, and I'm going strictly by memory from a few years ago, we didn't really invest very much in that. It was a grant that we got. But during that study when we were doing it, the payback period for investing in solar arrays that provide power when the sun is shining rather than storing the power, and I think that's what the ask is, was 16 years. So that means you spend the money and then you wait 16 years hoping that nothing is going to change in the meantime, like reinvesting in new technology and new panels and that kind of thing. And that's a fairly big concern for me. And the third thing that I'm really conflicted about as well, and none of my conflictions are any more important than the other ones, is that subsequent to this coming up, we've now been presented with another opportunity in our community, and that has to do with the policing costs that we're going to be faced with. And, you know, we need to factor that in, and how that factors into this, I have absolutely no idea at all. But I think it's part of what I'm concerned about, spending money in our community right now until we have finalized what the financial impact of policing is going to be in our community. So I don't even know where to go with this. They would be great projects. They would benefit a lot of people in our community, but boy, I just got some serious doubts about moving forward with this at this time.
Thank you. Councillor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I have the same concerns about moving forward because in your lease it states they're responsible for repairs. And I think if we were to give them money for repairs, it would open the door to all the other groups that have leases with the town to ask for money.
Okay. Councillor Campbell?
I mean, I agree with what Councillor King said. But I think when we look at organizations that take a lot of volunteer effort and are well needed in the community, that exceptions can be made for what you were just talking about. However, I'd like to see this brought back at a time once we've been able to completely wrap our heads around the policing costs, how that's being funded. And I agree. I think when we look at projects that aren't absolute necessities at this point, we'd be irresponsible to look at spending these kinds of dollars without completely understanding what's ahead of us as far as the policing costs go. So as much as I'd like to do this and it would feel good to do this, I'd like to see this brought back after we've gone through that process.
Yes. Councillor King?
Gerald, you know if they've applied for a gaming grant? I mean, we looked at the bowling club this morning and they applied for grants for this type of money, so I'm just wondering if they've ever thought of applying for the gaming grant.
Yeah, the only one that they actually said was the community foundation.
But it might be
for the
recommended,
10,000.
mentioned there's a gaming grant available.
And that rubber tire grant,
Yeah.
we got ours funded 100%.
Yeah.
So either that's changed or it's a different grant that they've applied for, because we got it for the fall surface at the splash park.
Councillor Rhodes, I've forgotten your name because you've been away for 2 months.
There you go again. Gotta get you back.
And they also switched out my chair while I was gone too. It doesn't work near as well as my other one. I have a question with regard to the lease, and I think in more contemporary terms it's known as a triple net lease, where the tenant basically pays for all costs of the building and snow removal and all of the other things that are attached to running that. Because it appears to be a valid lease and it seems to be enforceable and effective, can we change those terms arbitrarily like we're being asked to do without some pushback legally? I think I know what the answer is, but I'd like to hear definitively, can you just go ahead and do that just because you want to?
Well, I guess, part of this is how you view this particular application. Is it a tenant making application to improve a facility under the terms of the lease? And obviously then the answer to that is no, it's not an acceptable ask. However, if it's a nonprofit organization in the community coming to council asking for funds that happen to be going into a public facility, I think that's a legitimate ask. We sent out the budget call for projects, and the council had some options as to what they could do. They could fund it from general revenues, which is taking it right out of the direct taxation, or they could refer it to the community grants program, or they could not fund it at all. So there are some options for consideration where this particular project could go into the community grant and aid program, and it takes its chances with the other projects as well. Speaking generally, the terms of a lease like this, it is not very contemporary. I don't think there would be any way that anybody would get a 99-year lease anymore on a building, a municipal building like this. Also, I think it's incumbent upon the organization. I recognize the challenges of providing daycare in the community and the costs, but what they're asking for in terms of certainly some of the improvements, since they're getting the building for nothing, they should be working costs, some type of capital cost improvements into their budgeting system long term. And that way they'd be able to make improvements to the building that's being provided at no charge to them.
Yeah, $1 a year.
Yes,
I think it is.
and we don't get the dollar. So
they're not paying up.
Did I answer your question?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it was kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things you suggested was that it would be possible to look at applying to the grant and aid program, which has to be completed before we may get a chance to bring this back, because we may not know policing and that type of thing, because I think the grant and aid has to be applied for this month, does it not?
It's already gone past the 24th.
Pardon me.
Sorry, it's passed.
It's passed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if they did apply already.
No.
They didn't. Okay.
But that's not to say the council can't use the power of council to say,
Accept this.
put this project into consideration within the grant and aid.
Yes.
I'd
Councillor
just
Youngberg.
like to ask if possibly somebody from administration can give them a letter of suggestion of where to go with their concerns and their request. You've made 3 suggestions that I can remember within my head, and I think it's important that we respond to them with these suggestions of opportunities so that they can move forward with other applications and also resubmit, and ask at a later date if you think that's what you should do. But I think they should be given some direction. They're really not a strong board, and they need help from us as to what they can do to move forward.
I'm not sure where we're at. Do we have a motion on the floor that we haven't voted on? No, we haven't yet. Okay. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So I'd like to offer a resolution based on, and we'll have to wordsmith this a little bit, on delaying the project until we have more definitive information on our pending police circumstances.
Or decision on support for the program.
Ask Gerald a question.
Yeah.
Gerald, that money they're asking for to get the rubber matting, is that subject to them getting some matching dollars?
Yes. Yeah. That's
From
it's
the
50%.
So that would be they need 10,000
Half of the 15.
or 7.5?
Yeah.
So did you say, Gerald, that the rubber tire one, you got the 100%
We
of
got
it?
100%. Yeah.
It might be a good idea for them to apply for that then.
That's what they've applied for.
Oh, they have.
Already got
Okay.
hit
Very
But it's only 50%.
50%, so they really need the other 75 even
Yeah.
to get that 75.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
But it would be nice you'll send
Did you have
some
something
sort of
more to add?
guidance, will you?
Or do we have a,
We don't have a seconder, but
I'll
let me read
second.
the first, the resolution as we drafted it, and then you can have a seconder.
so
I'll
this was Councillor Rhodes?
That's right.
And actually, Councillor Campbell was kind of said it backwards too, so could we have you second it?
Sure.
You all right with that? Could you read it then, please?
Okay, so I've got moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Campbell, that council delay decision on support of this project until after council has reviewed the total town budget as to the impacts on the budget of the additional policing costs.
That's good, but how is mine backwards?
No, you said it first, but he already then said it. You're not backwards, you're seconding it now rather than be firsting it.
All good.
Is that, did you want to add something more to that, or is that all right, the way it is?
The only other thing I'd like to ask about, and maybe we should do another motion after this, is opening up the grant need deadline
Yeah.
so that they can apply
To
this.
suggest, write a letter that would suggest that they
Two
apply to that
motions.
right away?
Two motions,
Two
okay.
motions, yeah.
Okay, so we'll vote on this one first. All in favor? Thank you. So now your next motion is that they be sent a letter outlining some of the options, including applying for the grant and aid. Is that what you mean? Sorry, I shouldn't put words in
Well, I
your
hadn't
mouth.
thought of that. I was only focusing on grant need.
I think we might have been thinking the same thing. I wasn't thinking of sending them a letter outlining that. I was thinking of just moving that into grant and aid.
You got to open it, though.
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, all I was thinking of, very same thing, but if we're, they've applied for the grant and aid in the past, and we've given,
Yeah.
certain dollars, or we supported, I think last year we supported a dishwasher, not at its full capacity because we couldn't, because we had to make those choices. So if we did send a letter, stating that yes, it will be moved to the grant and aid, even though it's past the deadline, but what do you want as part of the grant and aid? Because if we just assume, because obviously they got a lot of projects on the go, but maybe if they're not successful in getting their grants, they may not do some of these.
So what's their
I
priority,
see
you
what
mean?
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so we know, and they know that, the max for this grant is up towards of $5,000. And if that helps them with the resilient flooring, or,
Right.
Well, that's right.
They
Relate
can
to
prioritize what they want to see.
Yeah.
hoping to get 70.
but at least they can ask, if that's
I'm for what he said.
So, and I was thought we were just saying that anyway, that we would write a letter to them stating that, but in fact, you would automatically put it into the grant and aid, but which one do you want to apply for first? Does that make sense?
We're basically saying that past the deadline, council would like to move their request to grant and aid,
Yeah.
but we want to know what they want to
Yeah, that's
prioritize
right.
for the ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's to match the 7500.
Did you get that, Miss Van Vianet? Oh,
And
Mr.
maybe-
Mank will write it for you, it's
Makes
okay.
sense. Then they have 15,000.
Yeah,
The council moves
At least one project.
Yeah, well, that way,
into the grant
just because we move, they can't think they're going to get 40,000.
and
Yeah.
request
Out of the grant and aid, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
a
want to
lot.
lead them to believe that.
and request that an applicant clarify priority funding, or priority project funding. Okay. Let's try that.
Okay,
Okay.
Come on now.
That council
I know, I'm
moves
watching.
that council moves this project into the grant and aid program and requests the applicant clarify priority project funding.
Yeah,
okay, is that all right?
So that's a mover by Councillor Rose and seconded by,
I'll second it.
Okay. So all in favor of the latest
The latest.
project, okay. So is that everything with this particular issue?
Well, now we come for the big one, yeah?
This is
Think that that's the last?
So, the next item on our agenda is, and I think we'll have to just skip over it, because I don't think we can afford it.
Yeah, we got police coming up.
Good job.
Thank you. Mr. Dinwoody?
Hello.
Thank you, Mayor McCardoff. So this is for approval to purchase a new 2-ton multipurpose truck for the town of Osoyoos. So the Operational Services Department would like to replace the existing 9-year-old 2-ton dump truck with a new equivalent model. The existing vehicle has numerous mechanical issues which will require a substantial amount of repair work if the unit is not replaced this year. The Operational Services Department utilizes this vehicle as a general utility vehicle performing a variety of tasks, including garbage collection, material hauling, and snow plowing. The Operational Services Department received 3 bids for the purchase of this vehicle, for the sale of this vehicle to the town of Osoyoos, and there's an evaluation matrix on what the bids were. The implications for the community are increased service efficiency as a result of using a newer, more reliable vehicle. Organizationally, the Operational Services Department will be better able to serve the community with a more reliable, multi-purpose vehicle. Budget-wise, the bid submitted by Drive Products, Inc. is $28,755, or 22% below the council-approved budget amount for this project, and meets all of the Operational Services Department's requirements for this replacement vehicle. The purchase of this vehicle would be financed through MFA over a 5-year term. Significant dates: in order to receive this new vehicle by June of 2017, Town Council should approve this purchase as soon as possible. Sustainability: the new vehicle will meet more stringent emission control standards, thus saving fuel and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The options before Town Council are that Town Council approves the purchase of a new 2-ton truck from Drive Products, Inc. for $101,245 plus taxes. Town Council, option number 2 is that Town Council does not approve the purchase of the new 2-ton truck from Drive Products, Inc. Option number 3 is that Town Council requests additional information prior to making a decision. Administration recommends that Town Council adopt option number 1.
Thank you. Concerns, questions? Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Jim, I, with all due respect, I'm going to make a couple of questions, and then I have an ask regarding this. And as you're aware, as I stated just a short time ago, we've had this opportunity come our way with policing in our community that is going to have a profound impact. Regrettably, at this time, we don't know what that impact is going to be, and we are doing our due diligence at this point to try to get up to speed and find out, exactly what's going to happen. Regrettably, the answers don't come easy, and they're not going to be quick for us to do that. Is it possible to defer this for a period of time? Not suggesting that we turn it down, but just defer it until we can get some of the numbers in to see what the overall impact is going to be, not only to the town, but certainly to the residents regarding our policing situation.
How long did you want to defer it for? Because the prices given to us by the bidders are valid for 30 days. If you wanted to defer it for later on in this year, then they'd have to rebid, and the prices may not be the same again. If you defer it until years from now, then, like I said, the price is going to be different, and it's probably not going to be cheaper.
I would think if this report was brought back in 45 to 60 days, that we probably could have a better sense of where we're going at this point.
Mm-hmm. Councillor King.
Can I get clarity? The money for this, though, has really no impact on the money we would need for the RCMP. This comes out of a separate fund. Is that correct? Or a different fund?
Well, this is...
This funding, first of all, this would be financed over 5 years.
Yeah.
And the funding for this comes mainly out of the water and sewer accounts. There would be a small amount attached to, and then also our waste accounts as well, because it picks up garbage. So water, sewer, garbage would probably pick up in 90% of this particular purchase, and the rest would be used for general. I think Jim would assign a small amount for general community use.
So that might make a difference to our suggestions on this if that is not going to impact our basic budget requirements for policing and other projects. I don't know. That's why I'm
I
sure.
think not knowing. Well, I guess we have reserve funds for all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. What I'm assuming is going to happen at some point in the very near future is we're going to be looking at every available option we have as far as dealing with this policing issue. So I don't know that it's as relevant that it's coming from a particular fund or reserve fund as it is that it's a large amount of money, and we have a huge question mark in the air that we're going to have to deal with in the very near future. And it seems to me the more of these ASTER projects come up, we're going to ultimately have the same answer until we can get our heads around and be able to deliberate on how we're going to deal with the additional policing costs.
Now, the old truck, like if you don't want to buy the new truck, the old truck's going to need $10,000 to $15,000 worth of work, or it will die. It is on its last legs now. In order for it to function, like if you're not going to buy the new one, then we have to use the old one, and the old one will take $10,000 to $15,000, which you're going to be putting into an old truck in order to get it to work.
Okay,
Can I ask?
Can I ask Mr. Urmenko to respond first? And then
Well, just one other point is that the preliminary water, sewer, garbage fees have been set, and this project at an additional $22,000 was worked into those into the annual water, sewer, garbage fees. So, and obviously the costs are less than we projected. So. It's not being worked into the general tax process. It's worked into our water, sewer, garbage fees.
Councillor King, did you have a question?
I kind of speak against the idea. I support this because you're really only talking about 10% coming out of general revenues, around $10,000, $11,000, and we kind of already increased the other to cover this.
Well, we also just heard that it's $15,000 that would have to be spent. That's not leased.
Repair an old truck, so
Yeah.
why not have a new truck?
So how's
Yeah.
that, Councillor King? We only need to come up with $10,000 or $15,000 now.
Well,
Out of
no,
general.
about
Out of general
90%
fund.
was mentioned out of the sewer and the water fund.
Right.
Which we've already increased. It covers, and it was mentioned that covers about 90% of the total. So we need about 10%. The truck's $101,000. So I just rounded it up to $10,100.
So that's what you need to put
it.
up.
The way I look at it.
It's a cash outlay today.
No.
No, it's a 5-year finance.
I know,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, what do you put up front? You don't go in and just get a truck and say financed over 5 years. You give them $20,000, $30,000, $50,000.
Nope.
Are you
No.
trading the truck in? What are you doing?
The old truck we would try to sell as surplus auction.
Oh, okay.
So we would
So
put it
then
in
they
as
just
surplus.
write the paper on the truck the minute you take it off the lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
would sell the old
And what are
truck,
you going to sell the old truck for?
as much as we possibly could get it.
Obviously, but
So-
what do you think?
What do we think for the old truck?
Yeah.
Considering it needs that, I would hope anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 for it.
Not a
I
lot,
hope
is it?
so.
9 years old.
It's 9 years
Wow.
old. It's got a lot of miles.
Probably
it's a
use
diesel.
a lot. Mr. Urmenko, did you have something to?
No, you're talking just the chassis, because you take the box off and you take the.
Well, we take the crane off, yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what we're doing is we're taking the 2-ton crane that's on our existing truck, we will take it off and put it on the new truck. So it does. We're not selling the crane. The crane goes with our new truck. The box, we would probably, if they want it, they could have it, because we're getting a new box with the new truck.
Oh,
so-
okay.
So we don't need the box. We would probably give them the dump box and the chassis of the truck is what we would sell.
Okay, did you have something you wanted to? Go ahead.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. I understand the need. I understand everything that's being said. I understand the dynamics of how the money works and flows. But I still have to point out that moving forward with the proposed resolution is still a $101,245,000 expenditure. No matter how you look at it, how you get the money and where it comes from, it is a powerful amount of money to be spending in a time in our financial history where we have some uncertainty. All as I'm asking is, can it wait 45 to 60 days so that this can be brought back when we have more knowledge about where our financial direction is going in the future?
Is that your motion? Was there a
Yeah, I have a
motion?
bad habit of making incredibly long motions. I
no.
apologize for that.
She can,
No, it was not that.
No, that's a straightforward motion.
That's
That
fair
number
enough,
3?
I think. And you've seconded
I'll
it?
second that, yeah.
It's like number
We're
three.
we're essentially asking that this come back in
It's
60,
number
45
3
to
on the
60
motion.
days.
Yeah.
So you'd like me to ask the companies that bid if they could,
Hold off
if
on
these
it
prices are valid for 2 months?
Yeah.
and explain what our concerns are.
Okay, I can ask them if they're valid. Like usually, if you have when you get a bid, it's only valid for a month.
Yeah.
But I can ask them.
So we're asking to have this delayed until such time as we have a better idea what our costs are for policing.
Now, if you delay it, then that means that that's that much longer before we get the truck. So
Yes.
if 2 months from now you decide, yeah, okay, we're going to go with the truck, I'm not going to get the truck until November.
No.
Now.
Yeah.
And in November is not really when we need the truck. We need the truck in the summer to really do the garbage runs and to pick up all the garbages in the parks and stuff like that. So we'll try to limp the old truck along through the summer period in the hopes that it doesn't die, but it might. And so we could end up going around, and instead of picking up garbages with a 2-ton truck and as the most efficiently as possible, we could end up picking it up in a 1/2-ton and doing much more trips.
CJ has a new truck. He'd lend it to
Excellent.
you.
Okay, that'll work too then.
No, of course not. Okay, so the motion is?
Moved by Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor Campbell, that decision of the expenditure for the 2-ton multi-purpose truck be delayed for up to 60 days.
Is that all right? Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes?
I guess I just go back to the concern of, I don't think we can take money out of the sewer and water towards police. And it does sound like we're spending $101,000, but in reality, we're only going to need $10,000 to $15,000 out of sort of the general revenue.
Yeah.
So I still think it's important that they get the truck now. The staff can work positively and have a negative truck that could break down next month. And then what do we do for 3 months?
I know, it's what we have to weigh in our minds, that's for sure. Okay, so the motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion? Against? Okay, fair enough, that's carried.
Councillor Youngberg.
Council Youngberg.
I know I didn't stick my hand
Okay,
up
so
by
that's
the
an
way, because I'm
affirmative.
It's an
still thinking-
affirmative
It's
if you,
affirmative, I
yeah,
think.
if you don't
Yeah.
vote.
Have you noted I voted against it?
Yes, she did, she
Yes.
got that.
It's noted.
So now, the next one, Mr. Dinwiddie. You're now on to the contract.
Bigger money, yes.
Bigger money.
So this is for the water distribution system extension and looping Lakeshore Drive at 56th Avenue to Highway 3 at 51st Street, and extension of reclaimed water irrigation system to the Osoyoos Secondary School. Under background, the purpose of this project is to provide access to the town's domestic water system for four unserviced lots, provide fire protection to the Lakeshore Drive Highway 3 intersection area, eliminate a dead-end water main on Bayview Crescent, and provide water looping for their water distribution system. Also, the Osoyoos Secondary School has requested that a water line be installed that will enable them to flush their reclaimed water irrigation lines to ensure sediment in the lines does not plug their irrigation sprinklers. Overview. This project consists of, the first project consists of installing a total of 370 meters of 150 millimeter water main, 220 meters on Lakeshore Drive connecting to the existing water main at 56th Avenue, and an existing dead-end main on Bayview Crescent, and 150 meters on the Highway 3 frontage road connecting to the existing 250 millimeter water main on 51st Street, as well as a 50 millimeter asphalt overlay of Lakeshore Drive between Highway 3 and 56th Avenue will be incorporated into this project. Also included in this contract is the proposed reclaimed water irrigation system expansion to REM Lot 1003, Plan 31183, which is essentially the Osoyoos Secondary School. This project will enable flushing of the reclaimed water supply mains to the school, thus enabling them to utilize reclaimed water for the irrigation of their sports fields this year. The implication for the community: enhanced water quality and fire protection capability at Lakeshore Drive and Highway 3 area. Also, less demands on our domestic water system for irrigating the Osoyoos Secondary School sports fields. Organizationally, elimination of a water dead-end main on Bayview Crescent, resulting in less water main flushing in that area. Budget-wise, the bid for this project from Mike Johnson Excavating Limited at $318,018.75, taxes included, is within the council-approved capital budget for these projects. Significant dates: in order to have these projects completed by May 22nd, 2017, the Operational Services Department would like to award these projects as soon as possible. For sustainability, less water flushing in the Lakeshore Drive area. The additional water flushing was necessary to ensure that water trapped in the Bayview Crescent dead end was refreshed and meeting established town domestic water quality standards. Also, removing the Osoyoos Secondary School's irrigation needs from the town's domestic water system will free up resources for our expanded service area as a result of the rural water twinning contracts 1 and 2. The options before council are that town council award the contract for Lakeshore Drive water main, highway number 3 to 56th Avenue, to Mike Johnson Excavating Limited for $318,018.75. Option number 2 is that Town Council does not award the contract for Lakeshore Drive Water Main Highway 3 to 56th Avenue to Mike Johnson Excavating Limited. Option number 3 is that Town Council requests additional information prior to making a decision. And administration recommends that Town Council adopt option number 1.
Thank you very much. I have a question. When I go up to OSS, the high school, there's a sign there that says that they're on reclaimed water.
Yeah, they're lying.
They have one line on there?
No, they have no line on there right now.
They just got a sign there saying
they
they
put the sign
are.
up early, yes.
Oh.
So they are not on reclaimed water right now. They need this flushing line in order to, like I said, flush out the sediment in the lines, and then they would be on reclaimed water. I have spoken to the lady who's in charge of the field maintenance for the school district, and they're all for using the reclaimed water as long as we put in this flushing line.
That is confusing, because the line says they're using it.
It does say they're using it, yes. I saw the sign, too,
Yeah.
How are they watering their lawns?
with well water right now.
Their own
Well, the
No,
well water.
well water, yeah, town
Okay,
water.
not the domestic
town water.
water that runs into the
Yes.
school?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's same water.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right now, they're using that.
so,
Question.
Councillor King.
On your Lakeshore Drive, does this have any effect if that development down the road moves forward?
No.
And some of these new developments would pay some of the VC costs on them?
No. I don't think, no, this is because there are 4 unserviced lots on
Yeah.
Lakeshore Drive right now. They just never had water. So the new development on Lakeshore Drive has no influence on this one way or the other. This is just something we should have done a long time ago, but we didn't.
One fellow requested water for his distillery.
No.
Yes, that's
No,
one.
that's a
one-
different project.
Oh, it's not one of the lots?
No, this is the, just when you turn on to Lakeshore Drive off the highway, the first 4 businesses, including the new distillery,
Yes.
that really needs this water in terms of its capacity to make that business go.
Ah.
And
Yeah, without this water line, they're questionable.
That's what I just asked.
Yes,
you.
that's
No,
what you
there
just
is
asked.
another.
yeah, but it's not the winery, it's the distillery.
That's what I said,
Oh,
distillery. I did say
Yeah,
distillery.
that's what I heard too,
I
Jim.
did say distillery.
That's who
But you're
I,
not speaking into your microphone. Distillery. Now I hear it.
So would they be paying some of the DC charges or just for this little section?
No, the funding for this, from when I recall from the budget discussion, some of it comes from DCC funds, and the rest, some comes from water and sewer funds. And the road works, some comes from DCC funds and some comes from general revenues.
And the distillery would have to pay a connection fee.
Yes,
the
yeah.
fence side.
Councillor
We
Rhodes.
delay it 45 days?
Then it won't get done on time.
Okay,
Doesn't make any sense.
just in all seriousness, ditto my previous report. This is these are projects, particularly the Lakeshore one, that are intended to repair chronic brown water, for lack of a different term, situations in that particular Bayshore area and provide water to some new businesses. Statement of the obvious, I understand that. When I've been thinking about our policing situation over the last little while, I would never want to interrupt infrastructure projects that were absolutely necessary for our community and that kind of thing. And I'm not sure if I put that quite in this category. It's a wonderful project. It's going to benefit a lot of people. But can it wait?
I'm sure the distillery would argue with you that it can wait, because without this, they don't have water, so that business won't happen. Not that it matters to us, but it'll matter to them.
You're next.
Well,
If we don't get the irrigation line, like for the water flushing line up to the high school, then once again they'll be using town domestic water for irrigating their sports fields, which is a waste. Which we could be irrigating it with water out of the storage ponds up at the lagoons, which is what we should be irrigating it with, because we have to draw down those lagoons for another project. So that would be to great benefit if we could actually get that line in. because otherwise we're not going to be able to draw down the storage ponds enough to be able to continue on with project number 3, which is cleaning of the storage ponds, which we already said we were going to do, and we've already awarded that contract.
Councillor Campbell's next, and then you. Councillor Campbell.
So my bigger concern, I know it doesn't seem like it, in the grand scheme of things it's big, is we have a business that continued setting up their operation to be ready for summer based on a decision that was made to go to RFP on this project so that they could have the water necessary to run their business. That concerns me greatly if we don't move forward, what it means to that business and the future of that business as far as being ready to operate for the tourist season.
Councillor Youngberg.
This is probably, again, after the fact, but I cannot understand why we would approve a business to operate and relocate into this community subject to them obtaining water, when in fact we know the water isn't even in the building, and it's going to cost us $150,000 to put the water in the building. I don't think that someplace I must have missed the meeting, because I certainly didn't hear that we were going to have to run water into that property at the same time as we approved the business license that night here. I did not hear that. So I'm just concerned about the fact that we go ahead and continually move forward on approving these projects based on what's been planned and what's been approved, but yet maybe we don't have a clear understanding of the cost of what actually has to be done in order to move forward.
So can I ask Mr. Amanko to respond to that, please?
Yes, the business went in. They have their own well, and they went in and made the calculations relative to the fact that they could operate under the flow volumes. When they started doing their testing and stuff like that, they found out that they could operate, but they would not be operating that efficiently or that effectively. And that's why they made a specific request to see whether or not there was the opportunity to have water. This is a project that has been in the books for a number of years that we've tried to move forward to finish off the business area there. And so my sense is that they probably can continue. It would not, but having the water would make them totally effective in terms of that particular service area. Because that's my understanding, and unless Jim has had further discussions with them.
No, but also, like, by doing this project, it's not just the one business that benefits. Like, there's 4 unserviced lots, but also there's that dead-end water line on Bayview Crescent, right? We continually have troubles with water quality in that area because there aren't enough people using water there to circulate the water. Right now, there's nowhere for that water to circulate, right, because there's no pipe in the ground. So what happens is we go down there, we open up a fire hydrant, we run a whole bunch of water down the street, so it looks like we're wasting a whole bunch of water, but that's to get the stale water out and get the fresh water circulating so that it meets our water quality standards. If you don't do the looping, then we'll continue to do that, which is fine, but you are trying to pouring water down the street, and we're supposed to be trying to conserve it, but that's the way we do it.
So I'm just going to jump in here first and just say that I think that both of these projects are important. I think that we need to continue on with those 4 lots over there and Bayview Crescent, making sure they have proper water. I think that is water and sewer issues are paramount to keeping this a good community and keeping us safe and healthy. I also think that we need to get the school to obey their signs, and if that means fixing their water line so that they can, that is really important as well. So I do understand the cost of this, and I do understand our concerns about money, but to me this is a project, both of these, that need to go ahead. So go, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I think it's important to understand that we are not killing this project. I have vivid memories of the business that we're talking about. Them starting up their business was not contingent on us providing any more volumes of water. They went ahead with that long before this project was even dreamed up. The beneficiaries of those 4 businesses that we're talking about getting water, they probably will at some point in the near future. The only thing that I'm asking for is 45 to 60 days of calming the project out. I understand all of the implications about it delaying everything, but the profoundness of what we're faced with policing-wise right now does require a new attitude and a new way of looking at all expenditures in our town. I have no idea what those numbers are going to be, but just simple, grade 8 math tells me it's going to be a significant amount of input financially by all of our residents in our community. And it's 60 days just so that we can...
Can I just say, and I think you're going to say this, that if we do delay it for 60 days, it really means delaying it till the fall, because I believe by the middle of May we can't do major projects like that because of the tourist season. Am I correct?
Well, what will happen if it's either now, and then the project will be finished before the May long weekend, or we do not do the project until after the Labor Day long weekend. Because between Victoria Day and Labor Day, that Lakeshore Drive is really busy. There'll be a lot of traffic on it. It's very impractical to be ripping up the road, which you have to do to put in the water line at that time. So we would have to re-tender this project for fall, and I don't guarantee you'll get the same price, because the other contractors who bid on this project were all much more money than Mike Johnson.
Mr.
Yeah,
Michael?
that was a point that I wanted to make. Is one of my concerns is the amount, the space between the award-winning contract and the next contract, and that's $72,000, which is quite significant. And
they were all more than that. So it ranges all the way up to $556,000. So if it's either now or we wait until the fall.
So do we have a motion on the floor? We don't.
No.
Is there somebody who would like to make a motion on this this topic? Go ahead. Oh, or did you had your hand up first?
No, I didn't.
No, sorry.
I was scratching my ear.
Oh, okie dokie. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So I'll make a motion based on similar wording to the previous report.
That we delay the decision.
Based on number 3?
I'm looking at 1, 2, or 3 there.
No, I think he's saying the same wording as the motion from the last report that came forward.
That was a totally different report, but
Right.
you're just talking about delaying the entire decision on this issue for another 45 to 60 days. That's it. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this issue?
Tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one, I know. So have you got that written down, Ms. Van Vienna?
I hope so.
Okay. Did you want to speak to it? Okay.
Would you like me to read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Youngberg, that the decision on the award of the Lakeshore Drive water main highway number 3 to 56th Avenue project be delayed up to 60 days.
Okay, moved and seconded. Yes.
I just wanted to speak to it, and I really agree totally that we're not dishing the project, but I just feel so much the same as Councillor Rhodes. If we are hit with $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 for this policing, we have to come up with the money in 30 days. All of this water already worked. The flushing of the lines, all that sort of stuff, that's been going on for a long time. Watering the high school field, they've always been using. So to delay it 2 months or 3 months, I just don't think is going to be really that.
You're going to delay it until the fall now.
Well, that's okay, but you can award it out in 3 months' time. At the end of 60 days, you can put it out for bid again. Mike Johnson isn't going anyplace. He lives here. So he could probably bid and start it in September. And we would be fine with September, October. And
we're going to lose from now until, so we're going to lose April, May, June, July, August.
of what?
Of
What are
water.
we losing?
We're dewatering our storage lagoon ponds up at the high school, because the high school will use a lot of water when they water their sports fields, and that's what we need. We have too much water in our storage ponds right now. We have no way of getting rid of it other than turning on the water at Desert Park and watering the sports fields. We also will turn on the infiltration pit, but that doesn't take very much water in a day. So in order to draw down the ponds so that we can proceed with cleaning cell number 3, which we already said we would do, we have to have that water being used by the sports fields, which they cannot do until that pipe is in.
What are the implications of dealing with the high school water issue and not the one over on Lakeshore? Could we do one without the other? I'm not suggesting we do that, I just wondered, could we do that? And that allows us to deplete the sewage lagoons if we did this. I don't know what the cost to that part of it would be.
I'd have to check legally if we can do half the contract. You know,
And I don't-
that portion of the contract was relatively small. It was probably
Yes.
about $44,000.
Yeah, I think so.
$42,000 for the high school portion of the contract. I don't know if you can award half a contract.
I don't know, just ask. Yes.
So one of my, big concerns is we can argue all day long whether the owner of the distillery did their due diligence ahead of time. But what I do know is they realized it was a problem and were extremely appreciative that they'd be able to run their business to its capacity once we had made the decision to move forward with this. I morally struggle with that more than anything right now. I get all the technical aspects and the infrastructure, but from a moral perspective, I'm really having a tough time with a business moving forward with an assumption that something was going to happen and then pulling it back. So that's just my feeling.
Okay, one more and then we'll take a vote on this, or go ahead.
So speaking to a couple of things, if our ponds do get to an emergency level, we do have a contingency to pump those out into an area that it's not like they're going to overflow.
No, the ponds won't overflow, but we have to make room in the storage ponds to take the water that's already in cell number 3, which we're going to desludge this year. We've already awarded that contract. So that water has to go somewhere before we can desludge it, and it's 55,000 cubic meters has to go into the ponds. So somehow we have to drop the ponds by that much. What happened this year for some inexplicable reason is I think it was a cooler, wetter, rainier summer than usual. The golf course did not use as much irrigation as they typically do. And so as a result, the level of the ponds were higher than we anticipated.
And in addition to that, when we have discussions like this that have impact on businesses and residents in our community, there's often a propensity for people to believe that we're being insensitive about their needs. We did not ask for the situation that's being presented to us. The policing situation is very definitive. It's on our plate, and we need to deal with it. Any of the suggestions that I've made in any of the comments, I'm not trying to be insensitive towards anybody involved in this. It's just that I think we need to sit back, put some of these projects on hold, and evaluate it in a very diligent way so that we have all of the facts and figures that we require to move forward with these things. That's all that this is about.
Sure.
And we all know the two people that are running that business, and we know what their need is, and they're great people, and they're going to be good corporate citizens in our community. But I think that they will be good corporate citizens and move forward with their business, understanding why we're putting this on hold for, or at least hopefully putting it on hold for a while.
Okay, I think we've looked.
I said ditto,
yeah.
I'd like to say that too.
Okay, we've looked at all this. We have it moved and seconded that we put this on this project, combined project, on hold for 45 to 60 days. All in favor? Against? So you haven't voted, so you're in favor. Okay. So the project is delayed for 45 to 60 days. Thank you, Mr. Dinwiddie. Next on our list is the general.
Something easier, I hope?
I hope so, because you're not getting any asks on this one. I'm just going to talk. This is the general net payroll and Sun Bowl Arena financial accounts, and this is to report on expenditures from accounts payable for council approval and payroll information for council to receive. So the general cash requirements were $422,236.16, and Sun Bowl cash requirements of $9,509.66, and those will be done by consensus. And the net payroll accounts of $76,940.57 is for info. So do we need anything more on that one, Ms. Van Vienen? Okay. Thank you. And we will now go on to the summary of building permits. So we have 3 projects on for in 2000, one of them's 2016, 17, to the month issued in the month of February 2017, a total of $452,460. A restoration from fire damage, a fire door and frame between 2 suites, and a single-family dwelling with attached garage. So do we need a motion to accept that report? Thank you. Councillor Youngberg? Okay, all in favor. And next is the bylaw enforcement report. And fortunately, in the month of January, our bylaw officer isn't quite as busy as she is in the summertime. So she definitely has outlined all of the issues, 110 hours spent in a variety of things. Quite often she has to deal with animals, so 18 of those hours was with animals. And parks enforcement on the next page is that would be dogs and a nuisance. So anybody need to report on that? Do we need to accept that? Okay, we need to accept this report. Thank you. King and Campbell. And the next thing is it Mr. Romanko's report?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Just a few of the activities that the administration has been involved in over the last couple of weeks. First, starting in community services. The Sonora roof is now finished. The leisure guide is completed and gone to print. They've also completed minor renovations at the Desert Park, including ceiling tiles, lights, and drywall. Staff has completed a grant for the Canada 150 for $5,000 to plant trees at the dog park. And volunteer appreciation event is scheduled for April 22nd. The insurance claim approved for the dressing rooms at the Sun Bowl Arena has gone through, so repairs will begin this week. And compost bin sales run from April 1st to from March 1st to the 22nd. In terms of corporate services, time has been spent working on our policy manual and small and consolidation of bylaws. A small claims notice of claim is prepared and sent for registration to the Penticton Court for small debt. In sightly premises, 2 significant properties are being dealt with right now, and one is being handled through the remedial action process. The other is being dealt with through the regular process, but may end up in the remedial action process. In finance, the auditors were here last week, and also they've been working on the year-end reporting. Myself, just in terms of grants, the town was granted $66,000 from the Rural Dividend Program to assist with funding final designs for the Gyro Park Pier, and we also received $2,000 from Fortis Gas for the fire hall water heater. Doing some work on the boundary expansion. I've taken a number of requests for information and expressions of interest, and I'll be pulling a report together for council, maybe in the next for the next council meeting. Attended the CAO's forum, in which time I gained some valuable insights into municipal policing contracts from my colleagues. Still waiting for the financial information on the policing contracts or sufficient amount of information to move this ahead. And that's my report for today.
Thank you very much. We need a motion to accept that report.
So
Thank
moved.
you. Councillor King, Councillor Campbell, all in favor. And now on to councillors' reports. Councillor Rhodes, you're first.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Well, as it was pointed out earlier by the mayor, I have been absent for some time, and I don't really have much of a report at all, but in all seriousness, I would like to thank my fellow council members, the mayor, and probably more than anything, the staff that was that helped provide the opportunity to phone in during my absence. I know it's awkward and it's confusing, and sometimes you wonder why the heck you do it, but in all seriousness, thank you very much for putting up with that and allowing that opportunity.
Well, we're glad you're back. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I know we discussed it earlier, but I just wanted to congratulate Brody McLean on representing Canada for BMX, and the Pee Wee and Midget South Okanagan minor hockey teams for making the provincials. I also wanted to recognize that the Coyotes swept North Okanagan in 4 games, so they should be well rested and healthy for their tilt with Summerland, which starts Tuesday and Wednesday evening, 7:35 at the Sun Bowl Arena. So if we can get out to cheer on our team. I also attended the launch of a program called Bridges, which is a collaborative effort with the provincial government and the Okanagan Nation Alliance on an initiative geared at helping Aboriginal youth to remove barriers to meaningful employment. And that was held at Incomeep Resort on Friday.
Good. Thank you. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess just really congratulate the 3 hockey teams and wish them the best in the provincials and the Coyotes in their next round of hockey.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Youngberg.
Yes, not very much happening in my camp for the last couple of weeks, other than just to relate to everybody that it's very difficult sitting in this position of councillor trying to make decent decisions about moving forward. So I just want to express great concern to anybody who's affected by the decisions. That certainly not personal in any way, shape, or form. It's just we have serious decisions to make at this time regarding the policing, and I'm hoping that the public understand my position.
Thank you, and I'm hoping they understand all of our positions, because that it is tricky, but that's our job to come up with what works best for the town. So I've been kind of busy for the last couple of weeks. I was at the Kiwanis Craft Fair at the Legion on Saturday, and I commend them. They're a really gung-ho volunteer group in this town, and it was kind of fun to go in there and see all of the people that you usually only see at Christmas markets, and they were there. I was at the regional district meeting last week where we talked a great deal about waste management, and we had that this morning at our CAL meeting, and Cameron Bond finally he didn't get through all of his meeting because he knows so much about the issues that he talks for quite a while, and it's always interesting to listen to him because he knows what he's talking about. I was also in Oroville on Friday. The water quality issues were being talked about down there, and we're just trying to see if we cannot work out dealing with Oroville Lake Osoyoos Association and up here, and perhaps come up with some grants to improve the water quality of the lake. I was at a couple of snowbird breakfasts. I didn't get invited to the Alberta ones, but I was invited to the Saskatchewan one and to the Manitoba ones, and that was there were a huge number of snowbirds at those. I can't believe it. One of them offered me breakfast and one didn't, so I won't say which is which. Anyway, I didn't have breakfast, but it was nice to go and just give wishes from the town. Councillor Campbell and I were at a School District 53 meeting within the last 2 weeks where the budget was discussed, and also the the letter that the town had sent on their protocol agreements, and I do believe we've had a letter just recently concerning that, so we will deal with that soon. Last week we had a meeting at the fire hall, and Fire Chief Rick Jones showed us around. It was the Osoyoos Council and staff, some of the staff, and the OIB Council, and we had a very good tour of that and discussed some issues that that were of importance to both OIB and Osoyoos. And I was also at a South Okanagan Community Coalition on Rural Health last week, and I'm hoping to be able to get over to a pain management workshop on Wednesday over in Princeton, but if the roads are not good, I'm not going. But there will be one being provided here by doctors and by healthcare practitioners sometime fairly soon, so I think that will be important. So I see that when I looked out a little while ago, it was raining and I couldn't see the mountain, and now I can, so it must have cleared up, and while we were here, the storm passed. So thank you very much, everybody, and could I have a motion to close the meeting? Thank you. That would be Councillor Campbell, Councillor King. All in favor. Thank you. Hello.